US federal agencies reopen and employees return to work. Australian state signs country's first treaty with the indigenous people into law. Good afternoon and Salam Malaysia Madani. This is World Today and I'm Mohana Priya. We begin our bulletin with local news. Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Manet and his Thai counterpart Anutin Chanvirakul have given positive feedback and reaffirmed their commitment to finding a peaceful resolution, thereby adhering to the terms agreed upon in the Kuala Lumpur Peace Accord. In a Facebook post last night, Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim stated that he had a telephone conversation with Hun Manet and Anutin Chanvirakul. This discussion was focused on the advancements in peace efforts following the recent incident along the border between the two nations. Datuk Seri Anwar also stated that Malaysia's readiness to continue playing the role of a facilitator in paving the path towards peace. He added that both Prime Ministers also expressed their appreciation for Malaysia's stance and the role it had undertaken, not just as the ASEAN chair, but also as regional friend and neighbour committed to peace. And on the other hand, Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim said Malaysia had never bowed to any foreign power in determining its foreign policy or trade relations, affirming that the country remains sovereign and independent. Prime Minister said that claims that Malaysia would bow to the US under the Agreement on Reciprocal Trade (ART) are unfounded, noting that the trade deal contains no provisions preventing Malaysia from acting in line with its national security interests.
Tidak ada mana-mana peruntukan dalam perjanjian dengan Amerika menghalang kita. Pertama, untuk memutuskan berdasarkan kepentingan keselamatan negara kita, terikat dengan undang-undang dan peraturan negara kita, dan hak kita menilai semula dan memberi notis untuk membatalkan. Tapi kalau benar kita ini tunduk kepada Amerika, mengapa hari Ahad saya sign dengan Presiden Trump, hari Isnin kita sign dengan negara China?
Datuk Seri Anwar stressed that he will still attend the G20 summit in South Africa next week, despite the US choosing to boycott the event. Federal employees could be seen returning to work in Washington on Thursday, the morning after President Donald Trump signed legislation ending the 43-day government shutdown, the longest in US history. About 670,000 furloughed federal employees will return to work, while a similar number who remained on duty without pay, including more than 60,000 air traffic controllers and airport security staff, will receive their back pay. The agreement also reinstates federal workers who were dismissed by Trump during the shutdown, while disrupted air travel across the country will gradually return to normal. The full financial cost of the government shutdown has yet to be determined, although the Congressional Budget Office estimates it caused a loss of $14 billion in economic growth. The package, signed by Trump on Wednesday night, funds military construction, Veterans Affairs, the Department of Agriculture and Congress itself until next fall, and the rest of the federal government until the end of January. The Australian state of Victoria on Thursday signed into law the country's first treaty with Indigenous people, hailed by advocates as a major step towards reconciliation by giving first inhabitants more oversight on decisions that concern them.
The gravity and importance of this moment is lost on none of us. And while this is just the beginning of the work ahead of all of us, we are only here today because of the vision, the persistence, the struggle and leadership of Aboriginal Victorians that I pay tribute to this morning.
The treaty, which will take effect on the 12th of December, delivers a formal apology to Australia's First Nations people and establishes a permanent representative body to provide advice to the Victorian government. Australia has long lagged other colonised countries in reconciling with its first inhabitants, never having signed a treaty unlike the US, Canada or New Zealand. Its roughly 1 million Indigenous citizens track well below national averages on most socio-economic measures. Britain's BBC has issued an apology to President Donald Trump for altering a speech in a manner that suggested that he had promoted violence in an attempt to avoid the US president's threat of legal action. However, the broadcaster dismissed the grounds for a defamation claim. In a statement, the BBC said its chair sent a personal letter to the White House making clear to Trump that he and the corporation were sorry for the edit, adding that the broadcaster has no plans to rebroadcast the Panorama documentary on any of its platforms. The leaking of internal accusations of bias at the BBC, including in the way it edited a 2021 speech by Trump on the day his supporters overran the Capitol, has forced its top two leaders to quit and for Trump to threaten a $1 billion lawsuit. Previously, White House said that Trump remains deeply concerned and describing the broadcaster as a leftist propaganda machine funded by British taxpayers.
Peralatan elektrik 5 bintang memberikan perkhidmatan 5 bintang.
Welcome back. President Trump signed an executive order alongside First Lady Melania Trump aimed at strengthening resources and support for children in foster care. Introducing her husband, Melania Trump said that the president had prioritized America's foster care children. Trump said the order would help young people transition successfully out of foster care system and called the initiative a coordinated effort between the federal agencies and the First Lady's office.
The new initiative we're establishing will also create an opportunity for foster youth to take full responsibility of the federal tax credit scholarship program established by the One Big Beautiful Bill. So many things, tax cuts and regulation cuts, so many things. The biggest ever passed in the history of our country. I call it the Great Big Beautiful Bill. I changed the name a little bit to make it even more sublime.
Trump thanked Melania for her work and said that the administration would ensure foster children will never, ever be forgotten. Two trucks carrying 1,600 sacks of flour from Humanitarian Care Malaysia, MyCare, successfully entered Gaza through the Rafah border and were distributed to families. MyCare Senior Project Manager said each 25-kilogram sack was provided to 500 families, noting that residents continue to face food shortages despite the ceasefire. MyCare Gaza manager added that the situation has improved slightly since the ceasefire, but many challenges remain. Israel has allowed only about 108 trucks into Gaza daily, far below the 600 trucks initially agreed upon under the ceasefire terms. The number of trucks is limited and the types of goods permitted are tightly controlled, causing shortages of basic items at prices many families cannot afford. Earlier, 5 trucks carrying 40 tons of flour and 1,000 food packs valued at $360,000 were sent via Rafah on 16th October and distributed in temporary camps in Gaza City. The US has urged the United Nations Security Council to unite and support a draft resolution on Gaza. Now, the draft submitted by Washington aims to reinforce US President Donald Trump's peace plan. A spokesperson for the U.S. mission to the UN warned in a statement that Palestinians would face serious consequences if the resolution fails to gain approval. He described the current ceasefire in Gaza as fragile. The global body must act swiftly to ensure lasting peace in the besieged territory. The draft resolution, among other points, welcomes the establishment of a security board, a temporary administrative body for Gaza until the end of 2027. It also allows member states to form a temporary international stabilization force, ISF. Additionally, once the Palestinian Authority implements the requested reforms and the rebuilding of Gaza begins, a clear path will be established for self-governance and the formation of a Palestinian state. Unlike earlier drafts, the latest version also mentions the possibility of establishing a future Palestinian state. Now, a vaccine catch-up campaign organised by UNICEF and its partners is underway in the Gaza Strip, aiming to reach more than 44,000 children who have not been vaccinated due to the war in the enclave. In partnership with the WHO and UNRWA, UNICEF are hoping to vaccinate the thousands of children who have missed routine immunization, nutrition support and growth monitoring during 2 years of conflict. Vaccines for measles, polio and pneumonia are being administered. The campaign began on 9th November and continues until 18th November. More than 450 health workers and support staff have been trained to support vaccination efforts. Additionally, 149 medical doctors have been trained to recognize, report and investigate any health concerns post-immunization, though such cases are extremely rare. Warnings rise for US as severe flu strain causes outbreaks in Canada, UK and Japan. Welcome back. A suspected outbreak of viral hemorrhagic fever in southern Ethiopia has killed 6 people, prompting the World Health Organization to send a team of experts and emergency supplies to help investigate and contain the outbreak. 6 people, including a doctor and a nurse, have died in the suspected outbreak in Jinka town, South Omo zone. A medical director of Jinka General Hospital said the 2 health workers who died had been treating patients with similar symptoms, highlighting the risk of transmission through close patient contact. The WHO team of 11 experts will help bolster surveillance, testing, infection control and clinical care efforts in response to the suspected outbreak. Ethiopian health authorities are investigating and scaling up their response after suspected cases in the South Ethiopia region, with laboratory testing underway at the Ethiopian Public Health Institute to determine the cause. Meanwhile, health officials are keeping a close eye on a flu strain that has sparked unusually early and severe outbreaks in Canada, the UK and Japan, raising concerns about its potential impact in the US. The strain, a mutated version of H3N2 first detected this summer, has rapidly spread and been linked to rising hospitalizations. Since it emerged, it's rapidly spreading and predominating in some countries so far in the Northern Hemisphere. Experts warn the strain carries multiple mutations that make it different from the H3N2 component of this year's seasonal flu vaccine. The UK is reporting flu cases 3 times higher than at this point last year. In Japan, flu cases in Tokyo are nearly 6 times higher than at the same time last year, forcing partial closures at more than 2,300 schools and daycare centres. It remains unclear how extensively the strain has spread elsewhere, including the US. While flu cases have been reported, comprehensive national data are lacking due to staffing shortages at the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. More than 1,000 unionized Starbucks baristas in over 40 U.S. cities began an indefinite strike on Thursday, escalating demands for higher pay, better staffing and a collective bargaining agreement. The walkout, starting with 65 stores on the company's busy Red Cup Day, is expected to spread and could become the biggest strike in Starbucks history, according to Starbucks Workers United. Starbucks said the impact has been minimal, with disruptions at fewer than 1% of its 17,000 U.S. stores. The union, representing about 9,500 workers across 550 stores, staged rallies in multiple cities, including Seattle, New York and Philadelphia, with some locations forced to close. Workers accused the company of unfair labor practices and demanded improved wages and scheduling. The strike comes as CEO Brian Nichols shutters underperforming stores and focuses on speeding up service to revive U.S. sales. Talks between Starbucks and the union collapsed last December, and the union recently authorized the strike after rejecting a proposal for a minimum 2% annual raise. Thousands of public school teachers across Peru staged a 24-hour strike demanding higher salaries, increased education funding and improved working conditions as tensions between the government and educators escalated over unmet commitments. The protest, organized by the Teachers Union, brought marches and demonstrations to major cities nationwide.
Represión sin sentido. Hemos sido sujetos varios dirigentes de una golpiza, palos, patadas que no tienen sentido. Somos maestros, no somos delincuentes.
The strike comes amid a broader wave of discontent in the education sector, with university professors continuing an indefinite walkout that began earlier this month over pay and pension demands. The Teachers Union warned that further action could follow if the government fails to address what it calls decades of neglect and broken promises affecting more than 400,000 education workers. The emergency officials and media reported a light truck crashed into a market in South Korea on Thursday, plowing 150 meters along a passageway lined with stalls before coming to a halt, killing 2 people and injuring 18. The incident took place at a market located in Buncheon, about 20 kilometers west of the capital, Seoul. The truck appeared to reverse for 28 meters before accelerating towards the outdoor market. The driver had blamed a sudden surge of acceleration for the incident. A police official said at the briefing the driver was not intoxicated when tested for alcohol. 2 people who had suffered cardiac arrest were later confirmed to have died. Police had arrested the driver, who was in his 60s, and he was being questioned for the incident.
Dari Hanoi ke Kathmandu, semangat juang Harimau Melaya terus menyala. Kali ini, satu lagi misi menanti. Taring tajam, sekali lagi bakal dibenam bagi memburu 3 mata penuh untuk negara. Terus marah ke pentas Asia. Kelayakan Piala Asia AFC 2027. Siaran langsung Nepal bertemu Malaysia. Selasa 18 November 8.30 malam di saluran OK dan Sukan RTM. Juga di RTM Play.
Coming up in sports, Roberto Mancini announced as new coach of Qatar's Al Sadd. Stay tuned. We kick off our sports segment with some local news. Deputy Prime Minister Dato' Sri Dr. Ahmad Zahid Hamidi said the National Fitness Test Programme for persons with disabilities was approved as the official fitness screening mechanism for PWD candidates applying to serve in the public sector. In a statement, he said the programme was approved during the Cabinet Committee on the Second Sports Development JKPS meeting this year, which he chaired recently. Among the key focus areas were the preparations of the national contingent for the 2025 SEA Games and Para Games, including strengthening athletes' mental resilience and motivation through courses with the Malaysian Nationhood Academy. In addition, JKPS approved the establishment of the first Orang Asli Sports Centre of Excellence at SMK Rancangan Penempatan Semula Betau, Pahang. JKPS also proposed that GLCs sponsor tickets for students and persons with disabilities to next year's Sepang MotoGP and consider including the event in the 2026 TMM calendar. The meeting also noted the achievements of national athletes in various disciplines such as esports and badminton, which reflect the effectiveness of government initiatives in strengthening the country's sports landscape. Malaysia will send a 1,688-strong contingent, including 1,166 athletes, to the 2025 SEA Games in Thailand, making it the country's biggest ever representation at the Biennial Games. Deputy Youth and Sports Minister Adam Adli Abdul Halim said 50 sports involving 573 events will be contested at the 33rd edition of the Games to be held in Bangkok, Chonburi and Songkhla from the 9th to 20th December, with Malaysia competing in 458 events.
Manakala, Tamasya Sukan Para ASEAN Thailand 2025 juga bakal diadakan pada 20 hingga 26 Januari. Penganjuran kali ini akan menampilkan 19 jenis sukan dengan 559 acara keseluruhannya. Kontingen negara kita akan ambil bahagian dalam 18 jenis sukan yang melibatkan 275 acara dengan penyertaan atlet seramai 238 dan 120 pegawai, menjadikan jumlah keseluruhan kontingen negara selamai 358 orang.
He added that the national contingent began preparations earlier this year, while the overall medal target is still being scrutinized and will be finalized on the 29th of November. Al-Sadd announced on Thursday that it has appointed former Inter Milan and Italy boss Roberto Mancini as their new manager on a 2.5-season deal. Now, the 60-year-old Italian returns to management over a year after leaving his role with the Saudi Arabia national team. Mancini takes the reins at Al-Sadd, who sit sixth in the Qatari top flight with 14 points from 9 matches, 8 adrift of table toppers Al Gharafa. His most successful spell as a manager came during his time with Inter. He led Inter to 3 Serie A titles, 2 Coppa Italia crowns and 2 Supercoppa Italiana triumphs during his first spell at the club between 2004 and 2008. He also guided Italy to the 2020 European Championship title and led Manchester City to their first Premier League crown in the 2011-2012 campaign. Mancini was linked with the Nottingham Forest job before the Premier League club appointed Son Deitch in October. South Africa plans to bid to stage the 2036 or the 2040 Olympic and Paralympic Games, the government said on Thursday, and become the first host of the global event on the African continent.
Cabinet is confident of South Africa's readiness and ability to host the Olympic Games given South Africa's available infrastructure and that the investments we need to make in infrastructure improvements are not significant, but the state of readiness, even if we are offered the games tomorrow, Cabinet is confident that we should be able to host them with our facilities.
The coastal city of Durban won the bid to host the 2022 Commonwealth Games, but pulled out in 2017 due to financial constraints. And Cape Town's status as a global tourist destination appears to make it more viable. Ahmedabad in India, Doha in Qatar, Istanbul in Turkey, and Santiago in Chile have also previously confirmed their intentions to bid for the 2036 Olympics. Moving on to tennis, Carlos Alcaraz clinched the year-end world #1 ranking and secured top spot in the Jimmy Connors group with a 6-4, 6-1 win over Lorenzo Musetti at the ATP finals on Thursday. A result that also sent Alex de Minaur into the semi-finals following his victory over Taylor Fritz. The Spaniard downed 2 Italians with 1 strike, eliminating Musetti from the season-ending championships and railroading Yannick Sinner's hopes of regaining top spot in the rankings, despite a far from stellar performance in his third round-robin win from 3. Alcaraz, who previously ended the year at top spot in 2022, has had the best season of his career, reaching the final of the 3 Grand Slams, winning the French and US Open, and losing the Wimbledon decider, facing Sinner on all 3 occasions. The 22-year-old, who won 8 titles in total this season, remains on course to win his first ATP finals after overcoming a brave Musetti performance where Alcaraz broke at 5-4 up in the first set before comfortably winning the second. Meanwhile, Australian Alex de Minaur pulled off a stunning 7-6, 6-3 win over Taylor Fritz in their last ATP Finals round-robin match on Thursday to eliminate the American and leave his own hopes of progression hanging on the outcome of the clash between Carlos Alcaraz and Lorenzo Musetti. De Minaur lived up to his demon nickname, showing energy and character as he hustled the lethargic-looking American all over the court, and after taking the first set tiebreak, stormed to victory following an early break in the second set. A victory for Spanish world #1 Alcaraz against Musetti in the other Jimmy Connors group match would send De Minaur into the semi-finals along with Alcaraz, but a Musetti win would see the Australian exit the season-ending championships. Alcaraz is now assured of his place in the semi-finals, win or lose, though defeat would put him in second place in the group, while a win would guarantee the Spaniard the year-end world #1 spot ahead of Italy's Yannick Sinner.
Daruman contra moped pelbagai kategori terus menggegar dalam perlumbaan motosikal Petronas Malaysia Cup Prix musim 2025. Dengan jiwa kelajuan, nantikan pecutan kemenangan setiap pelumba hanya di RTM.
And that concludes World Today. In our top story, federal employees return to work after 43-day US government shutdown. Tune in to Malaysia Tonight, coming up at 8:30 p.m. on TV1 and saluran Berita RTM. You can also stream the channel via YouTube or RTM's Clicks web portal and mobile app. We leave you with visuals of aerial athletes who completed the first 15-stage ultimate aerial obstacle course in a remarkable feat of extreme sport. I'm Mohana Priya. Thanks for watching. Salam Malaysia Madani.